So right now we're just working with Jack here on how to help him learn how to relax. So he tends to do the kind of behavior of like jumping up and nipping at arms and legs, and he's distracted by something outside. So we have the leash on with our martingale setup, and when he's that hyper, you want to kind of graduate to having it like this, because one, it's going to take pressure off of his neck from pulling around, but two, it gives you the opportunity to gain a little more control, because it's also kind of like swaddling the sides of his body like a baby, which can actually produce comforting signals to him. So we want this to kind of be on both sides of him as the leash is wrapped around the center part of his body. It won't hurt him because that is also with the strongest muscles on him. Now he's being calm and laying down. Until he lays down, when he has the leash on, you want to make sure that you're standing up, because every time you sit down, you demote yourself in the dog language, and you're essentially being more passive. So dogs view sitting as being much more passive than standing. So if he's doing something that would get him in trouble, you need to stand up to kind of give yourself that kind of authority or leadership position. Remember, just as additional tips while he's doing this, because I'm going to work on moving backwards a little bit, is if he's whining, crying, licking at you, barking at you, ignore all of those behaviors until he's nice and calm. And then make sure that you're intentionally petting him to tell him how good he is when he is being calm. So this would be a time period where pretty soon we could start petting him. I want to remind you of that kind of that minute rule. I don't mean always a literal minute, like 60 seconds, but make sure he's nice and relaxed and laying down or sitting before you start petting him. If he sits or lays down right after he was being kind of hyper and pacing, and then you pet him right away, he's attaching the meaning to all of it, the pacing, the hyperness, then the laying down. So we want to make sure he's been laying down for a little while or sitting before you start petting him. So the other thing I wanted to add as a tip to this video for specifically training with him and any other dog that kind of gets anxious like this is we need to almost desensitize him to getting attention. Because right now, oh, can you not play with that right now, buddy? Thank you. Right now, as soon as you go to pet him or look at him, his energy skyrockets and he goes into that kind of really hyper, licking at you, trying to get that attention on him. So what we need to do is desensitize him to that type of attention. So right now, I'm going to work on just briefly petting him under a second or so, and then I'm going to go back to standing up. We'll see how he's doing. We've been practicing this during the session. Another thing to notice of what I was doing, when I went to pet him, I only petted him. I didn't look directly into his eyes. If I made direct eye contact, he would have been up and off the floor so fast. So we have to break this down into little pieces till he can eventually learn how to stay relaxed while getting attention. Because the goal is at some point that we could come over, pet him for a long period of time, and he's okay. He can stay calm. Right now, if we do anything like that, he will be really hyper, nipping at you, and just trying to get more attention because he can't handle it. So we're teaching him how to relax while getting attention. So in the beginning, pet him briefly, don't look at him at the same time. And then eventually pet him longer as you can work on this. The goal is that if you pet him and he doesn't change body positions, you're good. If you pet him and he changes his body position, make it even easier the next time. Be slower, don't go as long in duration. Then eventually work up to eye contact. Work up to being able to pet him and look at him. Right now, I look at him, look up, look at him, look up. Before, when I first got here, that would have been enough for him to be jumping and kind of running around. So I'm going to kind of walk backwards. Come on. Come on. Good boy. Sit. Good. Good boy. And then we'll be able to sit down. Okay, so this is a huge progress, because in the beginning he wasn't able to do this. He wasn't able to handle being able to be petted. So we'll do it again. Pet. Notice that he's looking for that eye contact. If I gave that to him, he would have been up. But notice that he's calmly laying back down and he's being able to relax himself. So these are all the steps that you want to work on. Now that he's laying down and I'm able to sit and he's looking calm, notice where his ears are, how they're kind of pushed back a little bit. That shows that they're in a relaxed posture. He keeps putting his head down. Those are all signals that he's relaxed. If his ears are perked straight up and he looks tense, we're not there yet. But now we can kind of put the leash on the floor So we're graduating him up a little bit to give him a little more trust to eventually get to the point where he doesn't need the leash on at all, and we eventually work off of that. Last tip for the video, when you do have the leash on, try to keep it loose on him at all times, unless you're trying to kind of pull him away from nipping at you. But otherwise, try to keep it nice and loose so you can work to getting it off of him even quicker.